from the Radio What Studios, and this is my podcast, What Makes You Smarter? It's an extension of the RadioWhat.com internet radio station that I've been running for quite some time. And if you need DJ services, where do I send you? DJLittleRock.com. DJLittleRock.com. Check availability, get a free price quote, and maybe you can have me for your next event. You know, make your next thing a big one. The party goes on. This week's shows, as I'm recording this on Friday, I'll be at the Rab tonight, my usual Friday night gig. It's the video dance party, karaoke jam, your favorite place to be on a Friday night. The Rab in Conway, Arkansas, R-A-B. That's the three letters you need to know. Get to the Rab tonight at 8 p.m. until about 1 a.m. Video dance party, karaoke jam. They got the full bar, kitchens open, pool tables. They got a pool tournament on Friday nights. In fact, there's a little break and run that happens before the tournament, the actual tournament, where you break the balls and you try to run the table. And if you're a pool player, you know what that is. Well, the pot tonight is $1,800. So you can go home with $1,800 if you know geometry and you have mastered the game of pool. So yeah, there's something. So while you're waiting to sing a song on stage, you could try your hand at pool. Yeah. Always something fun to do over at the Rab. Good people, good food, good drinks, good times at the Rab, Conway, Arkansas. Then tomorrow night, I have a wedding. Oh, I'm so stoked about that. The weddings are coming back. Yes. I'm so excited. Been booking lots of weddings, not just this year, but all the way up into next year as well. People are planning ahead. You know, this coronavirus quarantine thing. It will end. There is an end to this dark tunnel that we're driving through. 2020 was supposed to be this year of clarity. Oh, I see clearly. 2020. You know, we look back. Hindsight is 2020. Yeah, hindsight will be 2020. Yeah, nobody's going to want to remember this year, but you should, of course. History. It's important. It's very important. Fill your head with knowledge, which is really what this podcast is all about, filling my head with knowledge. And while I'm at it, might as well read into this microphone, use this broadcast software. And if you like the sound of my voice, come along the journey with me. Also, you can do the journey with me on my other podcast. If you'd like to tell your story or hear the stories of others, I encourage you to check that out. It's called What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. Now, on with the show. Today on the program, 10 things you need to know today for Friday, September 25th, 2020. 10 things you need to know today. Number 1, crowds pay respect to Ginsburg. Trump heckled. Crowds of admirers lined up Thursday to pay their respects to the late Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Thousands filed by the leading liberal justice's casket, which was displayed Wednesday and Thursday at the top of the steps of the Supreme Court building. Numerous dignitaries also came to honor Ginsburg. President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump visited on Thursday, but people in the crowd booed and heckled him, chanting, quote, "Vote him out," end quote. Trump, wearing a mask, looked away as the chants grew louder and then walked back into the Supreme Court building. White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany called the heckling, quote, "appalling, but certainly to be expected when you're in the heart of the swamp," end quote. Ginsburg will lie in state at the Capitol on Friday, the first woman to receive the honor. This is according to the Associated Press and CNBC. Number 2, Kentucky Attorney General urged to release evidence in Brianna Taylor case. Calls mounted Thursday for Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron, Republican, to release the evidence in the Breonna Taylor case after authorities announced that the 3 police officers who killed her would not be charged. A grand jury decided to indict former Louisville police officer Brett Hankinson, the only one charged, for firing recklessly and endangering the lives in a neighboring apartment, but not for the 5 shots that hit and killed Taylor, a black emergency medical worker. Quote, we ought to be able to see the evidence and see the facts that led to that conclusion, end quote. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear, Democrat, told CNN, quote, I trust the people of Kentucky with the truth, end quote. The three officers 6 months ago broke down Taylor's door while executing a search warrant, then opened fire when her boyfriend fired his gun, thinking intruders were breaking in. Protests broke out in Louisville and other cities across the country after the announcement that none of the officers were being charged over Taylor's death. This is according to CNN. Number 3, Trump again declines to commit to peaceful transfer of power. President Trump doubled down on his refusal to commit to a peaceful transfer of power if he loses the November election, saying he has concerns the votes won't be, quote, honest, end quote. White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany said Trump would, quote, accept the results of a free and fair election, end quote. Trump faced bipartisan backlash over his comments. The Senate unanimously approved a resolution reaffirming its commitment to a peaceful transition, despite walking back Trump's comments. McEnany repeated Trump's baseless allegation that Democrats are conspiring to cheat by manipulating mail-in ballots. FBI Director Christopher Wray testified to Congress on Thursday that there was no evidence that mail-in balloting, which is expected to be widespread due to the coronavirus crisis, will result in fraud. This is according to Politico and The Hill. Number 4, Fauci says masks will be necessary after vaccine becomes available. Dr. Anthony Fauci said Thursday that Americans will need to continue wearing masks, practicing social distancing, and diligently washing their hands even after an effective coronavirus vaccine is available. The precautions will be necessary because the vaccine won't be 100% effective, and not everyone will be able to get it. Quote, it is not going to eliminate the need to be prudent and careful with our public health measures, end quote. Fauci, the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, said in a Facebook Live conversation with New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy, Democrat. Fauci said it would be, quote, a really good accomplishment, end quote, if the U.S. could manage to vaccine 75% to 80% of the population. President Trump has promised a vaccine will be available within weeks, but Fauci said a, quote, large proportion, end quote, of Americans won't be vaccinated until several months into 2021. This is according to CNN. Number 5, Democrats prepare proposal to limit Supreme Court terms to 18 years. House Democrats are preparing to introduce a bill next week seeking to limit Supreme Court justices to 18-year terms instead of their current lifetime appointments. Reuters reported Thursday, citing a copy of the bill seen by the news agency. Supporters said the legislation would reduce the likelihood of partisan fights like the one looming over Republicans' plan to rapidly replace the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg within just 40 days to go before the November 3rd election. Under the bill, justices' terms would rotate so that 2 would be appointed every 4-year presidential term. Only new justices would be limited to 18 years. Current justices would continue to serve their lifetime appointments. This is according to Reuters. Number 6, hiring momentum slows at 870,000 as 870,000 file new jobless claims. The Labor Department said Thursday that 870,000 Americans filed new jobless claims last week, an increase of about 4,000 claims over the previous week. The number was slightly higher than the 850,000 new claims that economists were expecting, suggesting a loss of momentum for the labor market recovery. This was another week that the new jobless claims remain below 1 million, but months into the coronavirus crisis, they're still at a level that far surpasses the worst week of the Great Recession. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, the record for the most claims filed in a single week was 695,000 in 1982. Schmidt Futures labor Economist Martha Gimbel told NBC News, quote, "It is astonishing that we are getting used to a number every week higher than we have ever seen before," end quote. This is according to CNBC. Number 7, Mnuchin, Pelosi say coronavirus relief talks will resume soon. Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Democrat California, said Thursday that the White House and Democrats would resume negotiations on a new round of coronavirus relief. Quote, "Hopefully soon," end quote, Pelosi said. Pelosi, in a shift of course, has started to work on a new relief bill that would be narrower than the $3.4 trillion HEROES Act that the House passed in May. But Republicans in the Senate have rejected. Pelosi said Thursday in a meeting with House Democratic leaders that the new bill would cost around $2.4 trillion. Senate Republicans have pushed a $650 billion to $1 trillion relief package. Pelosi's shift came after protests from moderates, some of them in swing districts, who had threatened to join Republicans in a procedural effort to force a vote on renewal of aid for small businesses. This is according to the New York Times and the Associated Press. Number 8, judge blocks administration attempt to stop census count early. A federal judge ruled Friday that the 2020 census count must continue until October 31st as scheduled, barring the Trump administration from ending the population count a month early. Judge Lacey Coe of the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of California also barred officials from delivering completed population data to the White House on December 31st, instead of the previously planned April 2021 delivery date. Coe found that the administration's shortened schedule for completing the count was likely to distort the figures of people of color, immigrants, and other historically undercounted groups, resulting in a potentially unfair redistribution of House seats based on the count. The ruling came after evidence filed this week indicated that Census Bureau officials believed cutting off the counting would hurt accuracy. This is according to the New York Times and NPR. Number 9, Trump's niece files lawsuit accusing him and his siblings of fraud. Mary Trump, President Trump's niece, filed a lawsuit against the president and his siblings in New York on Thursday, accusing them of fraud. The lawsuit claims the president, his sister Marianne Trump Barry, and his late brother Robert Trump, quote, concocted scheme after scheme to cheat on their taxes, swindle their business partners, and jack up rents on their low-income tenants, end quote. Mary Trump, who spoke out against the president in her book, Too Much and Never Enough, How My Family Created the World's Most Dangerous Man, also claims that after the death of her father, Fred Trump Jr., the president and his siblings, quote, fleeced her of tens of millions of dollars, end quote, of her inheritance. The White House dismissed the allegations. White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany said Mary Trump had, quote, really discredited herself, end quote, by secretly recording her aunt, Marianne Trump Barry, saying that her brother was a liar with, quote, no principles, end quote. This is according to NBC News. Number 10. Trump signs order reinforcing key Obamacare element. President Trump on Thursday signed an executive order declaring that it is federal policy to protect health insurance coverage for people with pre-existing conditions, which already are shielded under the Affordable Care Act. Trump announced the move in North Carolina before a campaign trip to the key swing state of Florida, saying he was putting protection for patients with pre-existing conditions, quote, in a stamp, end quote, because Democrats, quote, like to constantly talk about it, end quote. The order marked a pivot from Trump's promise to replace Obamacare with a health overhaul of his own, with Trump now taking credit for fixing the health care reform law. Quote, Obamacare is no longer Obamacare, end quote, Trump said. Quote, what we have now is a much better plan. It is no longer Obamacare because we got rid of the worst part of it. the individual mandate, end quote. This is according to the Washington Post. That's 10 things you need to know today for Friday, September 25th, 2020. Thank you so much for listening. This has been What Makes You Smarter. I'm KeysDAN, trying to fill my head with knowledge. And while I'm at it, I have this broadcast software sitting in front of me. If you like the sound of my voice, take the journey along with me. But please, 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 please don't use me as your only source of news. Make sure that you follow up on all the footnotes that I leave. I leave the sources at the bottom of every little news item that I read out. So, yeah, look that up. Do your own research. Don't trust anyone. Don't trust me, for sure, okay? I'm a moron. I'm just trying to get smarter and keep up with current events. So there you go. And also, if you'd like to tell your story or hear the stories of others, I encourage you to check out my other podcast, What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. And if you want to watch me stream some games, yeah, while I have nothing better to do on my vacation, I'm doing some online gaming, and it might continue. I started doing it a little bit before my vacation started, and now I've been doing it a lot. Streaming Fortnite, for the most part, but I have other games, Call of Duty and some Need for Speed, and there's quite a few other games, Brawlhalla. Just if you want to watch me play video games and probably fail, look me up. Hashtag KeysDAN Gaming. Find me on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook Gaming. That's it for me. It's KeysDAN, RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com. Peace. I'm out of here.